Hello, world. Today, Cody and I are going to be doing a top five gangster movies list. And that is Cody.
And that's Kyle. And to narrow down kind of the specifics of this one is we want to do like what are traditional gangster movies because I would like to have another conversation about like heist movies, where the robbery is the main thing, like Reservoir Dogs, for example. I think of as more of a heist. I personally think of that as more of a heist movie. But you could call it a gangster movie as well because it's pretty gangster. Um, with that being said, we do have a nice spot to start off on because we have an agreement on the number one slot, and it is actually a two-parter. So for the first slot, we put down Goodfellas, and The Departed, and it's no surprise that they're both directed by Scorsese. He actually directed another one of the movies on my list as well. So he's just the master of gangster movies, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah, I'm sorry to fact check you right here, but I'm pretty sure Goodfellas was directed by Brian De Palma.
Okay.
Yeah, we can research that later. Once again, total like random side point doesn't really matter to the point that you were making. And because Martin Scorsese is going to come up a lot in these videos as we go over our best directors, best high like Scorsese's just going to come up like a lot of other guys who have just done so much good
Right.
work.
Right. And it was Goodfellas was directed by Scorsese.
What?
Yeah, I just checked real quick. And that was my thing. It's like I knew it was, and I know who De Palma is, and I know why you could
What did De
think that.
Palma do?
No idea.
Yeah.
But this was my thing is they're like decades apart. And in my opinion, they are the best gangster movies.
Yeah,
The
like
Fellas and Departed,
hands down.
hands down, are so good.
Yeah.
And they tell two different stories because, as we were talking about before, the Departed kind of lore is based off of the Irish mob in Boston, with like Whitey Bulger being the main guy and things like that. And Goodfellas is totally Italian mafia. So yeah, they're
I
two
will
different.
say that like one of the main themes that comes out in both of them, and maybe that's just a Scorsese thing, is the fact that oh shoot, I totally lost my train of thought there. Sorry.
That's all right. Because so what I was thinking actually is one of the themes that comes up in a different movie that we're going to talk about on our list is the what we said before, the good guy playing the bad guy and the bad guy playing the good guy. And The Departed does an excellent job of that. Leonardo DiCaprio's character is one of the best undercover portrayals in fictional anything that I've ever seen. Like what he does as like a two-faced type of person.
And
Mark Wahlberg
that
even says
accent,
it. He's
like
like, you had two different accents, didn't you?
yeah, and you can tell he could pull off two different accents.
Right.
And
And
that
so
was
let's
what the point I was trying to make is that the one of the main foci of Scorsese's movies is the investigation that revolves around these criminal organizations. That is almost
sure. Yep.
always what he's focusing on. Is like how are these people being brought down? Because
Yeah,
they were
that's
so successful and prolific
you're right.
gangsters.
You're right. That
uh,
is totally a part. That's like a theme or like a focus of the movies.
yeah,
I don't think a lot of people think about that actually, and that's a good point.
yeah.
Um,
Well, Goodfellas is based on the book Wise Guy, and Wise
right.
Guy was written by Nicholas Pileggi, who led the FBI investigation on bringing down who's the main character in Goodfellas? Hill? Henry
Yep.
Hill. There we go.
Henry Hill.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So Nicholas Pileggi brought down Henry Hill, and these are like real names. I'm using
Right.
the real names of real people, real
Right.
FBI guy, real New York gangster. And yeah, that's also like one of the things that makes these stories so good is his source material. Like, dude, it was gonna be a good story no matter how, like almost no matter how you told it.
Oh, right. I've actually talked to, and so like that's kind of the same thing with Dune. Is it's like I've heard Dune is such a good book that it's like, well, you're bound to have a good movie based off of the book.
I haven't heard that, but that makes total sense. I mean,
I have heard.
I haven't seen the old Dune. I've only seen the
All
new
right.
one, and it rocked my world. I don't really have anything bad to say about it. Yes.
So one thing that I wanted to talk about The Departed that we haven't talked about actually is, well, it's kind of the obvious thing is like everyone dies, dude. Like Anthony Anderson is in that in the beginning and in the end, and he dies.
Yeah. Well, we were also talking about how like everyone's a rat in that movie. Like everyone. It's like Anthony Anderson is the only one that's not.
Yeah, right. Because the three white guys in that end scene that are all
Yeah, they're
cops
all
are all dirty cops. Right,
yeah.
exactly.
Well, I mean, Leo's not really.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Once again, that's the bad guy being the good guy kind of thing.
So, anyways, another thing I wanted to say about The Departed is it's fantastic casting because we've talked about Leo and Matt Damon already, but dude, Charlie Sheen does a really good
No,
job, and I
Martin Sheen, sorry.
oh yeah, sorry,
Charlie
Martin.
Sheen is a
Yeah,
giant crackhead.
right. So Martin Sheen does really good, and
Yes.
then
Alec
obviously
Baldwin.
Wahlberg. Oh, Baldwin does really well in that movie. But actually, this is funny. I actually ate at Wahlburgers today. So side note, man.
What?
Yeah, it was good. I got their patty meal. It was decent.
That is
Um,
awesome. I gotta fix something real quick. Keep talking. I'm just gonna
all right.
fix. I just gotta fix something.
So, anyways, that's another thing is that character, Dignam, is one of the best characters ever. And his line is one of the best lines ever. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe fuck yourself. Like, seriously, that writing is gold, and him delivering it is gold.
Yeah. So one of the going back to the Goodfellas thing and like phenomenal writing.
Yeah.
And that like one of the things that when I think of the movie Goodfellas, I get reminded of Skylar Vestal because he was constantly quoting Joe Pesci lines from Goodfellas because Joe Pesci was the most gangster of all gangsters who ever gangstered. Like
Right.
that character is
Yeah.
bored.
Well, I like Joe Pesci also because he's in The Irishman and he's in Casino. He does really good in Casino. Joe Pesci is just a really good actor for gangster movies.
Yeah, yeah, which is interesting because Home Alone.
All right, let's move on. And I'll say my second one actually, and this is a good transition anyways, because Joe Pesci is also in Casino. Casino is my second. And Casino has Robert De Niro, right? It's De Niro and Pesci.
Yeah.
And dude, De Niro's character, he just crushes it and he plays it so well. And like he's the Jewish guy, and he ended up running the casino for the Italian mob.
Yeah,
Awesome story.
feel bad. I saw like half of Casino and then I had to turn it off. I got distracted by something.
Oh, and also that's the other one that's directed by Scorsese, dude. Casino is directed by Scorsese.
Yeah. Well, and I mean it's lauded as like one of the best gangster films of all time. Like the fact that I haven't seen it is kind of a, you know,
No, and that's
why
why
are
I
you doing
watched.
this list?
That's
If you
why
haven't
I
even
watched The
seen Casino.
Godfather.
Yeah, exactly. No, and I'm glad you did.
Right. Yeah. All right. So what's your number two?
My number two is The Godfather.
Okay.
So this is actually another thing where I feel kind of incomplete in my research, but not entirely because once again, dude, The Godfather has been joked and recreated and riffed on in so many different ways. that you watched it and you're like, I almost felt like I'd already seen it.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And I knew what was gonna happen. I wasn't really surprised by anything.
Yeah. And once again, like, so if you watch Godfather, the first one, the original The Godfather, I think it's just an amazing, absolutely amazing standalone film that absolutely sets up for
Yeah.
a sequel. And I have seen The Godfather Part 2, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
Probably not as good as the first, but I haven't seen Part 3, and I don't feel too bad because it's not like critically acclaimed. People say
No.
that it's the worst of all three.
Right. It's made fun of.
Yeah, so and like I said, the movie freaking Mafia basically parodies episode one or episode part one and part two of The Godfather. If you've seen the spoof movie Mafia, then
Yeah.
you pretty much know what's gonna happen in The Godfather.
Right.
Doesn't
And
mean
just
it's
so
not
we
an
don't
amazing film. I love The Godfather.
and just so we don't like repeat later, The Godfather I do have listed as my fifth.
Yeah.
And so it's not that I thought it was good, not great. I did think that the killing of Luca Brasi was pretty gangster, like the way they killed him in that car, right? Isn't that the way they? Yeah,
I
didn't
don't
they?
remember.
I'm pretty sure they like wired him from the back seat. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And Luca Brasi is a well-known, like, yeah. So, anyways, I have the
Yeah, no.
Godfather at fifth.
And well, like the thing is, when The Godfather came out, like I was saying, it was when Lucas and Spielberg and Scorsese
Right.
were all contemporaries. But then who was it that? Because it wasn't Scorsese, it was Coppola. There we go. Thank God.
Right. Francis
Coppola
Ford
was
Coppola.
was also a contemporary of these guys, and they were
Right.
like, "Dude, you're going pretty hard on this Godfather thing," and he's like, "It's gonna be amazing."
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Coppola made Apocalypse Now, right?
I think so.
Yeah, and I've seen Apocalypse Now. That is a good
I've
movie.
seen it many times.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
movie. Yeah.
yeah,
So.
which is kind of weird. Like
Oh,
that's kind of a weird movie to watch. Multiple
randomly
times.
also, I want to do a like a car movies thing, and like we can like put the Fast and the Furious out of the conversation because that's a whole different conversation. Like,
Yeah, I yeah. Once again, I think we should just do a whole fast video. But yeah,
yeah, right, right. All right. So my next one is Donnie Brasco at number 3, and I think this is the one that's not on your list. And Brasco was directed by some random person that I looked up who it was. It wasn't anyone that I know. You might know them.
yeah.
But Brasco's just a great story, and it comes back to that thing that they did in The Departed, and it's the good guy playing the bad guy playing the good guy, things like that, and that whole confusion. Johnny Depp does that very, very well.
Yeah.
Al Pacino also does a good job in that movie, and his character's name is Lefty. They also do a very interesting thing in that movie that I didn't tell you about, and they are very specific about the hierarchy of the gangster like organization.
Yeah.
Like boss, made man, things like that.
Was one of them?
What's
April?
maybe. But what I found most interesting, or one of the most interesting things, was a specific language on how you are introduced to someone, because if someone introduces you and says this is a friend of mine, then that's your guy. But if he's a friend of ours, then that's a made guy.
Yeah, that makes sense. Very,
Yeah.
very specific language.
Right. And it's like, so hey, this is Donnie, he's a friend of mine. Okay, that just means he's your guy. Oh, hey, this is Donnie, he's a friend of ours. That means he's made, and you have to show him the respect that I do.
I love that.
Yeah, it really,
It's
you
just
would love it. Yep.
coding.
Yep. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Um, and it's very militaristic, I'll say. But yeah, that, I mean, that kind of comes through in that movie as well, actually, because Brasco talks about that stuff, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, and once again, just because to show my lacking in research, I haven't seen, or I've only seen part of. I think I only seen it once. I'm gonna watch Johnny Brasco again, like tonight or tomorrow, probably.
Because of how strongly I feel about it. And it's a good movie. That's all there is to it. So.
Well, one of the other things that I would want to kind of point out is like if you look back at the movies that we've listed so far, they are literally like you talked about, casted with freaking powerhouses.
Yep.
If you
Yeah.
have a movie
Pacino
with
and
Johnny Depp and Pacino, it's going to probably be pretty good. If you have a movie with Ray Liotta and Joe Pesci, it's probably going to be pretty good.
De Niro. Yeah.
Yeah, if you have a movie with Robert De Niro, it's probably going to be pretty good.
And Joe Pesci and Ray Liotta. It's probably going to be the best movie ever. So, anyways, before we get off of Brasco, because it's the last, or I want to get to your number 3.
Yeah.
Brasco is also based on a true story, and Joe
The
Pistone.
investigation.
Yeah, Joe Pistone is basically his undercover work is some of the most impressive work ever because, like I told you, he got like a dozen convictions and
Yeah.
like 200 charges. So like he literally like took down the mob. Um, but yeah, he kind of, you could tell at least in the movie they make it seem like he did so begrudgingly, because at that point like he just seemed so ingrained into it. So yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's a good movie.
Watch
So
it.
what's your number 3?
Road to Perdition, based on the graphic novel released in 1998, about a father who goes on a killing spree, sort of, after his hand is sort of forced by
Right.
his bosses.
Right.
Yeah.
Due to his boss's power hungry son.
Yeah. Specifically,
so
yes.
That's
Yes.
a interesting thing because there's two very different father-son dynamics in that one movie.
Yes.
With the Rooneys being the power, dad and son or whatever. But then Tom Hanks, like I said, he's like, hey, I'm gonna go kill all these people. Come on, son.
Yeah, his character is Michael O'Sullivan.
Right.
And yeah, the O'Sullivans, yeah. The fucking the wife and youngest son get murdered.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, that's forcing Tom Hanks's hand, kind of.
Very much so.
Yeah, after his wife and youngest son get murdered, he kind of decides to retaliate. And yeah, once again, it's Tom Hanks, and it's like, dude, Tom Hanks is hard.
Yeah, right. And actually, I love that. Actually, I haven't even thought about it because I think Tom Hanks is really great because he's in like my favorite movie ever. But what's funny is people don't appreciate his range, and like the Captain was a really good movie. Forrest Gump is a really good movie. Road to Perdition is a really good movie. Castaway is one of the best individual performances of all movies ever. And so, yeah, dude, Tom Hanks is the man, and him playing a gangster. Oh, and that's what I was going to say. I love that era. That era is, and you know this movie better than I do, but the movie Gangster Squad with Gosling and all those guys. That era of gangsterism or whatever is a fun one.
Yeah, so it is actually very because I know, and yeah, it's on my list later. Gangster Squad takes place in the 50s.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's wrong.
Post-war and all that stuff, and Road to Perdition is very, very firmly set in the 20s because Prohibition is going on.
Right. All right, I was wrong with them being in the same era, but that's okay.
Oh well, I didn't think you. They're both very, very good at capturing, I think, the gangsters of that era. That's what I was getting from the point you were making.
Yeah, and that's what those movies did. And so I have, just so we can get through it, I have Perdition at 4 on
Yeah,
mine.
exactly.
And then Godfather is 5. So we've already talked about the Godfather. The only one on my list, and we will talk about what else you have.
Yeah,
But the only other one I have is The Irishman, which I really just watched. I watched it like the other day. And I wanted to watch it because I know the Whitey Bulger story. I didn't love it. That's why I have it all the way down at number 5. It was done by Scorsese. So again, it's like, dude, what can you not do when it comes to gangster movies? I also really enjoyed the fact that it is essentially the Whitey Bulger, Jimmy Hoffa story.
yeah. I was like, why do you say
Right?
it? It's not Whitey Bulger. It's the Jimmy Hoffa story in the Union. Is Whitey Bulger involved in that at all? Whitey
Oh,
Bulger was a Boston gangster in the 80s.
I thought
And
that's
Jimmy
who I
Hoffa
thought.
Irishman thing took place in Chicago, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, so the Irishman essentially is the two main characters driving in their car to a wedding. And that's De Niro and Pesci.
Yeah, and they're old as shit.
Right, and they're old as shit. And so that's what I was saying. I thought the De Niro character was Whitey Bulger.
No,
This
there's
is lit. I'm
just
sorry,
because
but
you're just like conflating Irish people here.
and I asked you literally, I wish we had been more clear in our conversation prior to this because I literally asked you and you were like, yep. Because I was like, essentially, The Irishman is the precursor story for The Departed because The Departed, the Whitey Bulger character is Frank Costello, right?
Yeah.
So Frank Costello, before all of the stuff that happens in The Departed, he, was the main enforcer for the mob. And yeah, so I guess I am conflating them, but that's because I thought that you had confirmed what I was thinking, and I really did think that that was the case.
That's fine. We can clear all this up in part 2.
Yeah, all right.